All right, hi everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another video. Now, I want to talk about a boxing exhibition match that recently took place, and that was the boxing match between Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul. Now, I was surprised to see that this match was taking place. Logan Paul is a YouTuber. He's had a couple matches before, but I was really surprised to see that he was going to take on Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition match. I mean, that really surprised me. And Floyd Mayweather, for those who don't know, is considered to be one of the greatest boxers of all time. He retired undefeated with a record of 50 wins and 0 losses. He came out of retirement to have a match against Conor McGregor, and then he came out of retirement again and had this match with Logan Paul. And Logan Paul is, a YouTuber. He has a huge following. I mean, Logan Paul just has an enormous following, and that's why I believe this match happened. Logan Paul has 23 million subscribers on YouTube. His brother Jake also has a lot of subscribers too, 20 million, but more on Jake Paul later. And anyways, Logan Paul has this massive YouTube following. He has another 3 million on a YouTube show called, or about 3.5 million on a YouTube show called Impulsive. So he has a lot of subscribers. A lot of people would want to see Logan Paul in a match, and they would pay for the pay-per-view. And that's what happened. And as a result of that, Logan Paul got $20 million for that exhibition boxing match against Floyd. And Floyd got anywhere between $50 and $100 million for this. So a lot of money was generated by this fight. And like I said, I believe it's because Logan Paul really is very popular. But anyways, I did think that Logan Paul did a pretty good job of selling the fight. Now, a lot of people tend to think that, these Paul brothers, they make these goofy videos, these, prank videos. They must not be very tough, but that's not true. They're actually very tough guys. And, with this match, I knew, because most people were saying that they felt that Floyd Mayweather would knock out Logan Paul and it wouldn't go the distance. I felt that it would go the distance. Like I said, I did feel the match would go the distance. I felt Logan Paul did do a good job of selling the fight, in that I kind of sold it as something kind of like a Rocky story. Like he's getting this 1 in a million chance, kind of like Rocky did in the Rocky movie. Because if you remember, in the Rocky movie, it came out in 1976, the bicentennial year of the country. And as a result of that, the heavyweight champion Apollo Creed wants to have a match and create a lot of publicity around the match by fighting an unknown club fighter. He chooses an Italian because Christopher Columbus discovered America. So that was the idea behind, the whole Rocky movie and how all that happened. Well, with Logan Paul, he got this match, probably by kind of making his own luck. I mean, I don't think it was just like a lucky thing. He kind of made his own luck, and he somehow got this match to happen. I don't know all the details surrounding how this thing actually happened and how much of it was Logan Paul, but it did happen. And he trained for it in Puerto Rico, from what I understand. And then the match happened, and I didn't see the whole match. I saw like highlight reels and clips of the match. I know, Logan Paul was the much bigger guy, weighing in at 189, and Floyd Mayweather weighed in, I think, at around 155 or 160, which was big for Floyd Mayweather. And then they had the match, and Logan Paul um, did a lot of grabbed a hold of Floyd Mayweather a lot because Logan Paul is a wrestler. I'm actually surprised that Logan Paul went into boxing and not more MMA because the Paul brothers have a background, from what I understand, not in boxing but in wrestling. So kind of surprised me. And Logan Paul, from what I understand, was this almost undefeated wrestler in high school. Maybe a couple people were able to beat him. That was about it. But anyways, they had this match, and Logan Paul, like I said, grabbing a hold of Floyd Mayweather a lot, but Floyd Mayweather did land a lot of hits, and Floyd Mayweather, they say, won. However, the match was not scored, and I should mention that the match wasn't scored. But they were saying that Floyd Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather did win. Now, Floyd Mayweather was also much older than Logan Paul. Floyd Mayweather's 44, I believe, and Logan Paul, I think, is 26. So, anyways, Logan Paul did end up going the distance. I knew he would, and now he's gonna get, most likely another fight pretty soon, probably against a big name. It'd be interesting to see who it is, and because I'm wondering, will it be a YouTuber? Will it be an MMA fighter? Will it be another ex-boxer? I mean, you just don't know. So now, Jake Paul, the brother of Logan Paul, is also a fighter, and he has won a few. He has won his boxing matches. Before this Floyd Mayweather fight, Logan Paul had a couple other matches against a British fighter by the name of KSI, and Logan Paul did not win those, although he almost won the second match. He got a couple points taken away. But Logan Paul almost won the second match against KSI. So it was interesting. This Floyd Mayweather-Logan Paul fight was billed as the man who never lost versus the man who never won. I mean, how on earth would you sell a fight like that in the past? I mean, in the past, that no one would have wanted to see a fight like that. But like I said, because Logan Paul was so huge, people wanted to see that match, even though it was the man who never lost versus the man who never won. But anyways, Jake Paul is the brother of Logan Paul, and he has won his exhibition boxing matches. He beat a YouTuber, then he beat a basketball player, I believe it was. Then he had a match with Ben Askren, and a lot of people were saying that he was not going to beat Ben Askren. Now, Ben Askren was a UFC fighter, MMA fighter. He is a wrestler, but he's one of those wrestlers who would win matches based on his wrestling, because Ben Askren was a really good wrestler. He's, from what I understand, a multi-winner of the Danny Hodge Trophy. The Danny Hodge Trophy is the college wrestling equivalent of the Heisman, and Ben Askren had won that. Danny Hodge being this boxer slash wrestler who a lot of people said that had MMA happened in his time, he would have been really good. He would have been a really good fighter. He became a pro wrestler because that's what was around at the time. But anyways, Ben Askren, really good wrestler, got into MMA, and he wasn't one of those wrestlers that got into MMA and then just became a boxer. You've seen that a lot in MMA, where this really skilled collegiate wrestler will go into MMA and he'll just become a boxer, essentially. But that wasn't the case with Ben Askren. Ben Askren would always win matches with his wrestling. And for a while, no one could beat him. Then he lost a match. It ended very quickly, actually, about 5 seconds, against Jorge Masvidal. Then he lost the follow-up match against Damian Maia. And you see that a lot in MMA, where you'll have this fighter and he'll be undefeated or almost undefeated, and then he'll go up against someone, he'll have a match and he'll lose, and then he'll have another match and he'll lose the follow-up match. You see that a lot in MMA. Why that is, I don't know. We have this, like I said, this undefeated guy, or almost undefeated, then has a match, loses, then loses the match right after that. So is that psychological? Who knows? Maybe the fighter loses confidence after his loss, and then he loses the next match. Is it that the fighter's mystique is gone? Because, once a fighter loses a match, the brand could be tarnished. So maybe that's part of it. I mean, I don't know, but you have seen that before too. You especially saw that with Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva would pretty much, seem to beat these fighters even before the match had begun. Even before the match had begun, it's almost like he already won. It's like his opponents were like losing to like the mystique of him. But then once Anderson Silva was beaten, more people were able to beat him after that. So yeah, that's kind of interesting how that happens in MMA quite often. Like I said, it happened to Ben Askren. Now Jake Paul, like I said, Jake Paul beat Ben Askren, and a lot of people didn't think Jake Paul would win that. But like I said, Ben Askren really wasn't a boxer. I was very surprised to see that it even happened. Now, Jake Paul's next match is going to be against Tyron Woodley. And Tyron Woodley, although also a wrestler, picked up boxing really good when he went into MMA and is a good striker. But he's, like an MMA striker. He wasn't an actual boxer. He would use boxing in the MMA context, because it's a bit different. You have to check leg kicks, and you have to be able to sprawl. You have to be able to throw punches at different angles that you wouldn't necessarily have to throw in boxing. So, there is a difference there. So it'd be interesting to see if Jake Paul is able to beat Tyron Woodley. My own prediction on this, this is just my prediction. I could be wrong, but I'm going to say that I think Jake Paul's going to win the match. I think he's going to win. But, because I think Jake Paul's really become a pretty good boxer, and as far as I know, they're training for boxing now, full time from what I understand. These Paul brothers were, like I said before, these Paul brothers were these, YouTubers who made these like prank videos. Now, I never really watched too many of their videos. I've watched some of them. To me, like Logan Paul's videos reminded me a lot of like what you had on MTV, like early 2000s, when he had like shows like Viva La Bam and Punk'd and Tom Green. So, he kind of reminded me of that a bit. Like, he would have been on MTV at one point in time. But anyways, yeah, so I, have seen his videos. I first heard about him probably the way a lot of people heard about him, and that was that incident over in Japan that had happened. And then he became famous. And then the next thing you know, you're hearing about them taking these boxing matches and all that. And, really seems like people want to see that. And if people want to see it, the promoters will, promote it. If people do want to see it. Now, how long is this like celebrity or YouTuber boxing thing gonna go on for? How long? I don't know. You know, some people say it's got about a year left. Others say it could go on much longer than that. So I really don't know because, you know, boxing certainly has, I think, lost some popularity in recent years. I mean, a lot of people really wanted to see this Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight. Joe Rogan even said he was very excited to see this match. You know, that he really wanted to see it. And, you know, I'll have to admit, I wanted to see it too. You know, I was wondering what would happen. Could Logan Paul go the distance? Like I said, I felt he could. A lot of people felt he couldn't. But, anyways, yeah, who knows how long this sort of thing will go on. I mean, I just don't know. Because, like I said, with regular boxing, the last time I could think of a boxing match that, you know, there was really a lot of buzz around that people really wanted to see was the first Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder match. And then after that, you know, they had a rematch and now they're going to be fighting again. I don't think the rematch and the third match were as popular as this Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather thing. The only thing that comes close is their first match. The first, you know, Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder match. Maybe that comes close to this. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. But yeah, so be interesting to see, you know, what happens if Logan Paul does beat Tyron Woodley, or I'm sorry, Jake Paul. If Jake Paul beats Tyron Woodley, you know, what happens next? You know, I would be interested in knowing. You know, does most likely he'll take on someone even more famous. Chael Sonnen threw out an interesting idea, and that would be a match between the Paul brothers and the Diaz brothers. You know, two matches on the same UFC card, and if that happened, the UFC would do huge business. And I agree. If Dana White were to set that up, the UFC would do huge business. Now, Jake Paul has been saying some things about Dana White and, you know, him not paying the fighters, you know, well enough. And, you know, that is a real issue, but Logan Paul has been very silent on that because I feel that Logan Paul feels that he could have a match in the UFC at some point, maybe against the Diaz brother, who knows. You know, but certainly I think people would want to see that. Like I said, I think if they had, you know, the Paul brothers against the Diaz brothers, I think it would be enormous. But yeah, so, you know, who knows if something like that would take place in the future. I mean, I really don't know. But yeah, just wanted to do this video on this because, you know, exhibition matches have happened before. I mean, it is really nothing new in boxing, but you never saw like a YouTuber go up against someone like a, you know, Floyd Mayweather before. I mean, that hasn't happened. I do remember a while back the exhibition match between Lyle Alzado and Muhammad Ali. I can actually remember that, and I remember being really surprised at how well Lyle Alzado was doing it and did against Muhammad Ali. Now, people were saying Muhammad Ali, you know, made that happen because he didn't want to knock Lyle Alzado out. I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know. That could have been the case. But anyways, yeah, I did want to talk about this because, you know, I had been hearing a bit about it. I've heard people talk about it, and I kind of wanted to give my own 2 cents about the whole thing. So that's all I've got. Please remember to like and subscribe. And if you watched this video, as always, I thank you for watching. Have a good night.